Hello again, everyone. I'm Nicole from the Gettysburg Library, and welcome to the next chapter of The Secret of Chimneys. We just finished up with Chapter 26, the 13th of October, and this is Chapter 27, the 13th of October, continued. The clock in the council chamber struck 9. "Well," said Lord Caterham, with a deep sigh, "here they all are, just like little Bo Peep's flock, back again and wagging their tails behind them." He looked sadly around the room. "Organ grinder complete with monkey," he murmured, fixing the Baron with his eye. "Nosy Parker of Throgmorton Street." "I think you're being rather unkind to the Baron," protested Bundle, to whom these confidences were being poured out. "He told me that he considered you the perfect example of English hospitality among the haute noblesse." "I dare say," said Lord Caterham. "He's always saying things like that. It makes him most fatiguing to talk to. But I can tell you I'm not nearly as much of the hospitable English gentleman as I was. As soon as I can, I'll let Chimneys to an enterprising American and go and live in a hotel. There, if anyone worries you, you can just ask for your bill and go." "Cheer up," said Bundle. "We seem to have lost Mr. Fish for good." "I always found him rather amusing," said Lord Caterham, who was in a contradictory temper. "It's that precious young man of yours who has let me in for this. Why should I have this board meeting called in my house? Why doesn't he rent the Larches or Elmhurst or some nice villa residence like that in Streatham and hold his company meetings there?" "Wrong atmosphere," said Bundle. No one is going to play any tricks on us, I hope," said her father nervously. "I don't trust that French fellow, Lemoine. The French police are up to all sorts of dodges. Put India rubber bands around your arm and then reconstruct the crime and make you jump, and it's registered on a thermometer. I know that when they call out 'Who killed Prince Michael?' I shall register 122 or something perfectly frightful, and they'll haul me off to jail at once." The door opened, and Treadwell announced, "Mr. George Lomax, Mr. Eversley." "Enter Cotters, followed by faithful dog," murmured Bundle. Bill made a beeline for her, whilst George greeted Lord Caterham in the genial manner he assumed for public occasions. "My dear Caterham," said George, shaking him by the hand, "I got your message, and came over, of course." "Very good of you, my dear fellow, very good of you. Delighted to see you." Lord Caterham's conscience always drove him on to an excess of geniality when he was conscious of feeling none. Not that it was my message, but that doesn't matter at all. In the meantime, Bill was attacking Bundle in an undertone. "I say, what's it all about? What's this I hear about Virginia bolting off in the middle of the night? She's not been kidnapped, has she?" "Oh, no," said Bundle. "She left a note pinned to the pincushion in the orthodox fashion." "She's not going off with anyone, has she? Not with that colonial Johnny? I never liked that fellow, and from all I hear there seems to be an idea floating around that he himself is the super crook. But I don't quite see how that can be." "Why not?" "Well, this King Victor was a French fellow, and Cade's English enough." "You don't happen to have heard that King Victor was an accomplished linguist and, moreover, was half Irish?" "Oh, Lord, then that's why he made himself scarce, is it?" "I don't know about his making himself scarce. He disappeared the day before yesterday, as you know, but this morning we got a wire from him saying he would be down here at 9 p.m. tonight, and suggesting that Cotters should be asked over. All these other people have turned up as well, asked by Mr. Cade." "It is a gathering," said Bill, looking round. "One French detective by window, one English ditto by fireplace. Strong foreign element. The Stars and Stripes don't seem to be represented." Bundle shook her head. "Mr. Fish has disappeared into the blue. Virginia's not here either, but everyone else is assembled, and I have a feeling in my bones, Bill, that we are drawing very near to the moment when somebody says, 'James, the footman,' and everything is revealed. We're only waiting now for Anthony Cade to arrive." "Oh, he'll never show up," said Bill. "Then why call this company meeting, as father calls it?" "Ah, there's some deep idea behind that, depend upon it. Wants us all here while he's somewhere else. You know, the sort of thing." "You don't think he'll come, then?" "No fear. Run his hand into the lion's mouth? Why, the room's bristling with detectives and high officials. You don't know much about King Victor, if you think that would deter him. By all accounts, it's the kind of situation he loves above all, and he always manages to come out on top." Mr. Eversley shook his head doubtfully. Well, that would take some doing. With the dice loaded against him, he'll never... The door opened again, and Treadwell announced, "Mr. Cade." Antony came straight across to his host. "Lord Caterham," he said, "I'm giving you a frightful lot of trouble, and I'm awfully sorry about it, but I really do think that tonight we'll see the clearing up of the mystery." Lord Caterham looked mollified. He had always had a secret liking for Antony. "Oh, no trouble at all," he said heartily. "It's very kind of you," said Antony. "We're all here, I see. Then I can get on with the good work." "Well, I don't understand," said George Lomax weightily. "I don't understand in the least. This is all very irregular. Mr. Cade has no standing whatever. This position is a very difficult and delicate one. I am strongly of the opinion—" George's flood of eloquence was arrested. Moving unobtrusively to the great man's side, Superintendent Battle whispered a few words in his ear. George looked perplexed and baffled. "Oh, very well, if you say so," he remarked grudgingly, then added in a louder tone, "I'm sure we are all willing to listen to what Mr. Cade has to say." Antony ignored the palpable condescension of the other's tone. "It's just a little idea of mine, that's all," he said cheerfully. "Probably all of you know that we got a hold of a certain message in cipher the other day. There was a reference to Richmond and some numbers." He paused. "Well, we had a shot at solving it, and we failed. Now, in the late Count Stilptich's memoirs, which I happen to have read, there is a reference to a certain dinner, a flower dinner, which everyone attended wearing a badge representing a flower. The Count himself wore the exact duplicate of that curious device we found in the cavity in the secret passage. It represented a rose. If you remember, it was all rows of things, buttons, letter E's, and finally rows of knitting. Now, gentlemen, what is there in this house that is arranged in rows? Books. Isn't that so? Add to that in the catalogue of Lord Caterham's library there is a book called The Life of the Earl of Richmond, and I think you will get a very fair idea of the hiding place. Starting at the volume in question, and using the numbers to denote shelves and books, I think you will find that the object of our search is concealed in a dummy book, or in a cavity behind a particular book." Antony looked round modestly, obviously waiting for applause. "Upon my word, that's very ingenious," said Lord Caterham. "Well, quite ingenious," admitted George condescendingly. "But it remains to be seen—" Antony laughed. "The proof of the pudding's in the eating, eh? Well, I'll soon settle that for you." He sprang to his feet. "I'll go to the library." He got no further. Monsieur Lemoine moved forward from the window. "Just one moment, Mr. Cade. You permit, Lord Caterham?" He went to the writing table and hurriedly scribbled a few lines. He sealed them up in an envelope and then rang the bell. Treadwell appeared in answer to it. Lemoine handed him the note. "See that is delivered at once, if you please." "Very good, sir," said Treadwell. With his usual dignified tread, he withdrew. Antony, who had been standing irresolute, sat down again. "What's the big idea, Lemoine?" he asked gently. There was a sudden sense of strain in the atmosphere. "If the jewel is where you say it is, well, it has been there for over 7 years. A quarter of an hour more does not matter." "Go on," said Antony. "That wasn't all you wanted to say." "No, it was not. At this juncture it is unwise to permit any one person to leave the room, especially if that person has rather questionable antecedents." Antony raised his eyebrows and lighted a cigarette. I suppose a vagabond life is not very respectable," he mused. 2 months ago, Mr. Cade, you were in South Africa. That is admitted. Where were you before that?" Antony leaned back in his chair, idly blowing smoke rings. "Canada, wild Northwest." "Are you sure you were not in prison? A French prison?" Automatically, Superintendent Battle moved a step nearer the door, as if to cut off a retreat that way, but Antony showed no signs of doing anything dramatic. Instead, he stared at the French detective, and then burst out laughing. "Oh, my poor Lemoine, it is monomania with you. You do indeed see King Victor everywhere, so you fancy that I am that interesting, gentleman? Do you deny it?" Antony brushed a fleck of ash from his coat sleeve. "I never deny anything that amuses me," he said lightly, "but the accusation is really too ridiculous." "Ah, you think so?" The Frenchman leaned forward. His face was twitching painfully, and yet he seemed perplexed and baffled, as though something in Antony's manner puzzled him. "What if I tell you, monsieur, that this time, I am out to get King Victor, and nothing shall stop me?" "Very laudable," was Antony's comment. "You have been out to get him before, though, haven't you, Lemoine? And he's gotten the better of you. Aren't you afraid that may happen again? He's a slippery fellow by all accounts." The conversation had developed into a duel between the detective and Antony. Everyone else in the room was conscious of the tension. It was a fight to a finish between the Frenchman, painfully in earnest, and the man who smoked so calmly and whose words seemed to show that he had not a care in the world. "If I were you, Lemoine," continued Antony, "I should be very, very careful. Watch your step and all that sort of thing." "This time," said Lemoine grimly, "there will be no mistake." "You seem very sure about it all," said Antony. "But there's such a thing as evidence, you know." Lemoine smiled, and something in his smile seemed to attract Antony's attention. He sat up and stubbed out his cigarette. "You saw that note I wrote just now," said the French detective. "It was to my people at the inn. Yesterday I received from France the fingerprints and the Bertillon measurements of King Victor, the so-called Captain O'Neill. I have asked for them to be sent up to me here. In a few minutes we shall know whether you are the man." Antony stared steadily at him. Then a little smile crept over his face. "You're really rather clever, Lemoine. I never thought of that. The documents will arrive. You will induce me to dip my fingers in the ink, or something equally unpleasant. You will measure my ears and look for my distinguishing marks, and if they agree—" "Well," said Lemoine. "If they agree, eh?" Antony leaned forward in his chair. "Well, if they do agree," he said very gently, "what then?" "What then?" The detective seemed taken aback. "But I shall have proved then that you are King Victor." But for the first time, a shade of uncertainty crept into his manner. "Well, that will doubtless be a great satisfaction to you," said Antony. "But I don't quite see where it's going to hurt me. I'm not admitting anything, but supposing, just for the sake of argument, that I was King Victor. I might be trying to repent, you know." "Repent?" "Oh, that's the idea. Put yourself in King Victor's place, Lemoine. Use your imagination. You've just come out of prison. You're getting on in life. You've lost the first fine rapture of the adventurous life. Say, even, that you meet a beautiful girl. You think of marrying and settling down somewhere in the country where you can grow vegetable marrows. You decide from henceforth to lead a blameless life. Put yourself in King Victor's place. Can't you imagine feeling like that?" "I do not think that I should feel like that," said Lemoine, with a sardonic smile. "Perhaps you wouldn't," admitted Antony. "But then, you're not King Victor, are you? You can't possibly know what he feels like." But it is nonsense, what you are saying there," spluttered the Frenchman. "Oh, no, it isn't. Come now, Lemoine, if I'm King Victor, what have you against me after all? You could never get the necessary evidence in the old days, remember? I've served my sentence, and that's all there is to it. I suppose you could arrest me for the French equivalent of loitering with intent to commit a felony, but that would be poor satisfaction, wouldn't it?" "You forget," said Lemoine. "America! How about this business of obtaining money under false pretenses, and passing yourself off as Prince Nicholas Obolovitch?" "No good, Lemoine," said Antony. "I was nowhere near America at the time, and I can prove that easily enough. If King Victor impersonated Prince Nicholas in America, then I'm not King Victor. You're sure he was impersonated, that it wasn't the man himself?" Superintendent Battle suddenly interposed. The man was an impostor, all right, Mr. Cade. I wouldn't contradict you, Battle, said Antony. You have such a habit of always being right. Are you equally sure that Prince Nicholas died in the Congo? Battle looked at him curiously. Well, I wouldn't swear to that, sir, but it's generally believed. Careful, man. What's your motto? Plenty of rope, eh? I've taken a leaf out of your book. I've given Monsieur Lemoine plenty of rope. I've not denied his accusations, but all the same, I'm afraid he's going to be disappointed. You see, I always believe in having something up one's sleeve, anticipating that some little unpleasantness might arise here. I took the precaution to bring a trump card along with me. Or rather he, is upstairs. Upstairs? Said Lord Caterham, very interested. Yes, he's been having rather a trying time of it lately, poor fellow. Got a nasty bump on the head from someone. I've been looking after him. Suddenly, the deep voice of Mr. Isaacstein broke in. Can we guess who he is? If you like, said Antony, but Lemoine interrupted with sudden ferocity. All this is foolery. You think to outwit me yet again. It may be true what you say, that you were not in America. You are too clever to say it if it were not true. But there is something else. Murder. Yes, murder. The murder of Prince Michael. He interfered with you that night as you were looking for the jewel. Lemoine, have you ever known King Victor to do murder? Antony's voice rang out sharply. You know as well, better than I do, that he has never shed blood. Who else but you could have murdered him? Cried Lemoine. Tell me that. The last word died on his lips as a shrill whistle sounded from the terrace outside. Antony sprang up, all his assumed nonchalance laid aside. You asked me who murdered Prince Michael, he cried. I won't tell you, I'll show you. That whistle was the signal I've been waiting for. The murderer of Prince Michael is in the library now. He sprang out through the window, and the others followed him as he led the way around the terrace, until they came to the library window. He pushed the window, and it yielded to his touch. Very softly, he held aside the thick velvet curtain so that they could look into the room. Standing by the bookcase was a dark figure, hurriedly pulling out and replacing volumes, so absorbed in the task that no outside sound was heeded. And then, as they stood watching, trying to recognize the figure that was vaguely silhouetted against the light of the electric torch it carried, someone sprang past them, with a sound like a roar of a wild beast. The torch fell to the ground, was extinguished, and the sounds of a terrific struggle filled the room. Lord Caterham groped his way to the lights and switched them on. Two figures were swaying together, and as they looked, the end came. The short, sharp crack of a pistol shot, and the smaller figure crumpled up and fell. The other figure turned to face them. It was Boris, his eyes alight with rage. She killed my master, he growled. Now she tries to shoot me. I would have taken the pistol from her and shot her, but it went off in the struggle. St. Michael directed it. The evil woman is dead. A woman? Cried George Lomax. They drew nearer. On the floor, the pistol still clasped in her hand, and an expression of deadly malignity on her face, lay Mademoiselle Brune,